Welcome to the Week 2 Go-To session. This is the second session that we're having this month. Thanks to the people who are in here in attendance live. Thanks to the people who are watching this after the fact in video form. But a few people, it looks like someone in the chat was talking about Achieve modules and how did everyone do in the Achieve modules. Yeah, I still need to record those. Right now, I'm finishing up the weekly journals. And then I'll enter the Achieve module grades. That takes like 2 seconds. But in general, you should know what your Achieve module grade is, because if you completed that interactive thingy to 100%, remember I showed in real time how they work last week, and I showed that there's a little bar at the bottom of your screen that indicates your progress, right? Every time you answer a question correctly, the little bar goes up. And when you get to 100%, you're done. Okay, so yeah, it shouldn't hopefully be too much of a mystery. Juan, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but if your internet is giving you issues, yeah, that seems like something on your end. You might try to leave the room and re-enter it again, but if there's a slow internet connection, there's not much I can do. That's happened to me as well, like giving a session. This is why I almost always do the sessions here on campus, because there's a strong internet connection. Okay. Let me make a quick comment about the weekly journals before I get into this week's stuff. Most people have been doing fine on the journals. I just want to remind people how simple the journal responses are. Again, I treat these as informal quizzes. So the journal responses are literally me looking to see, has this person completed the readings? Has this person watched the lecture? Remember the instructions, which are highlighted in yellow, basically recommend writing 2 paragraphs. One that summarizes the assigned readings, one that summarizes the lecture. If you can do that, I'm happy to record 100 and move on. So yeah, don't make this activity more difficult than it should be. Because I've had a few people who are more just responding personally. I don't mind that. You can write whatever you want, but you still have to make sure that you're summarizing. Okay, a good rule of thumb is to mention maybe something specific from the beginning, middle, and end of both the readings and the lecture. And beyond that, you can write whatever you wish. And it doesn't have to be like super serious all the time. Like a couple people, I guess, paid attention when I mentioned certain hip hop artists last week. So mentioning something like that, or a joke that I tell, that can be proof as well, right? I just like one literal proof that the readings were completed and that the lecture was viewed. Okay, so welcome to week 2. Here we are. I should mention that, we instructors aim for a 72-hour turnaround time on assignments. So your brainstorming worksheet was due Sunday at midnight, which means by tomorrow at midnight, I hope to have these graded. I'll be honest, it's going to be tomorrow that I focus on these, all day tomorrow. But I will work like crazy to try to get them completed by midnight. If I do go past midnight, I'm pretty good at, like, if I do go past the deadline of giving students like an extra day, because I'm not going to take a day away from you on the next assignments. And you need my feedback on this. Okay, you need my feedback on your worksheet before you can move on to this week's stuff. Week 2, it's exactly the same as week 1. You have another journal response, another Achieve module, and the main activity is this guy here. It's an outline. And yeah, you can't really begin the outline until you get feedback on your worksheet. So yeah, there is some pressure on me to get this stuff returned to you. Specifically to that thesis. Okay, remember we talked about thesis statements at the end of the week 1 lecture, and you have to have a working thesis, because you're going to need that thesis to complete the next stage, which is an outline. I'll go ahead and open up the activity. You can read through this on your own, all the instructions. I'll briefly mention you have this video here to watch. It's called Pathos, Ethos, and Logos in Advertising. At the end of this session, I'm going to talk about research. Okay. The short of it is you have to remember in your mind that you need 3 sources. Okay. The ad technically counts as a source, but beyond the ad, you need 3 sources. And you can use this video as one of your 3 sources. So one source has already been provided for you. So just keep that in mind. The rest of this you can read on your own. But you have a sample outline. You actually have 2. You have a past student outline, and you have an outline based on the GPAD. that we worked on, that we looked at last week. I actually completed some of the major assignments that I asked my students to do because I think it's incredibly useful for instructors to actually do the assignments that they assign. You can learn so much from it. Like, I thought I would bang out the Jeep essay. I know you don't write the essay until next week, okay? But still, I thought I would sit down and I chose that Jeep ad. I felt like I already knew what I wanted to say about it. And this is going to be easy. I'll bang this out in an hour or two. 12 hours later, I was still working on it. Because, it took time. It took time to find sources. It took time to write the essay and go back and improve things. I'm sort of obsessive about making sure that it reads cleanly and perfectly. I think it's useful to do the assignments yourself as the instructor because it reminds you how difficult writing is. Writing is never easy. It becomes easier over time, but it never becomes easy. Second, it helps me become aware of like the pitfalls, the cautions, the things that I can sort of see because I've done it. So you do have an example of the Jeep outline, a completed Jeep outline. Now, here's the good news. Most of you have probably heard the word outline before. You don't have to create an outline from scratch. So I have a blank document open. So most of you probably know an outline has like Roman numerals, then it goes to capital letters, then it goes to just numbers, then to lowercase letters. I forget where it goes after that, right? You don't have to do any of that, okay? Because the outline has been created for you. Actually, I'm going to do something completely different this week, which is, yes, I have a presentation filled with slides, but I think I'm going to just jump into the outline itself because I think I can explain it better if we just take a look at it. So what I have here is the blank outline. I also have open a completed outline. Okay, and you have this available. Okay, so this is based on the Jeep ad. So I've completed an outline for you. And by the way, I don't know how many of you took advantage of looking at the sample brainstorming worksheet for week 1, but you always have completed models. Okay, so if lectures are not your best way of learning, and for some reason there are always students who learn most or learn best from just looking at examples. Okay, we always have completed models for you to study. But let me go back, like really basic stuff here, okay? So let me explain in general what we're working toward. We are working toward a basic 5-paragraph essay. I think I mentioned this last week, right? So a basic 5-paragraph essay has an introduction. That's the first paragraph. A conclusion. That's the last paragraph. And then, of course, paragraphs in between. Those paragraphs in between is where you really dive right into the issue, okay? So I'm going to pick like an admittedly super lame, super general topic. Keep in mind that this is not the kind of essay you are writing for this class. All of you are working toward an ad analysis essay. That's why you chose one of the approved ads from the list last week, completed a brainstorming worksheet that I need to respond to, because you're going to be working with that ad all month, step by step, toward the creation of a single essay. But that single essay is going to have 5 paragraphs. Remember last week I talked about the importance of threes? That in your chosen ad, you have to be able to identify 3 important and interesting moves that the ad makes. You might recall that I said no detail in an ad is accidental. So that Jeep ad, it's not coincidence that the background is this fabric-like, textile-like beige background. Remember we talked about it being an earth tone and that textured background is reminiscent of burlap or canvas. And that's not coincidence given that it's a Jeep ad. You have to be able to spot 3 things, okay? And those 3 things get listed in your thesis, okay? Because here, let's imagine we are writing the lamest paper ever. What I did over summer vacation. Okay, so if you remember, last week I said the thesis is where you list your 3 points. So let me imagine that for this super lame essay that you would probably write like in 5th grade, we have a thesis that says, I loved my summer vacation, because I went hiking, hung out with friends, and traveled to Florida. Okay, so I love summer, and here's the 3 reasons why. I went hiking, I hung out with friends, and I traveled to Florida. So here's the basic shape of the 5-paragraph essay. And I apologize to some of you who have already gotten this in high school and are probably thinking, really? You're going to explain to me what I already know? There are lots of students who have never gotten this before. And I need to make sure that every student can write a focused essay. And most semi-formal writing, so essays, articles, school assignments, yeah, this is a very basic structure. You have some sort of introduction, you have some sort of conclusion. In between, you have separate body paragraphs where you focus on one idea at a time. Okay. Yes, an assignment, or excuse me, a piece of writing can be longer than 5 paragraphs, of course. So I'm getting a little bit lost here. What did I want to say? Oh, yeah. I mean, the 5-paragraph format is often taught in high school, but of course, the paper can be longer. But the basic concepts behind it are accurate. Okay, so we don't begin writing by just diving right into the middle of the topic. We plan things. Okay, so 5 paragraphs. So introduction. Okay, so you're going to have some sort of opening. Maybe you talk about summer vacations in general. Maybe you talk about the beauty of summertime, right? Some sort of opening. And then it's going to end with your thesis, right? Where your 3 points: hiking, friends, Florida. Okay. And then your body paragraphs go through each of those thesis points one at a time. So body paragraph uh, number 1 will cover hiking. It's entirely about hiking, the entire paragraph, and then so on. Body paragraph number 2, friends. Body paragraph number 3, travel to Florida. And then you have a conclusion, okay, where you echo your thesis and wrap things up. Now, for those of you, maybe this is all new stuff to you and you're learning a lot, great. If this is like a review of what you ever got in high school, I apologize, but it's also incredibly helpful because you're already familiar with it. Okay, but this is what we're aiming for. And I don't want you to forget this, because as simple, okay, this might be the lamest topic ever, right? And this might be a really telegraphed and obvious thesis, but this is what we're doing with the ad analysis. So yes, the ad analysis is a more ambitious assignment. It requires critical thinking. It requires you being able to examine an ad and find interesting things to say about it. But keep in mind, this is what we're doing. Okay? Now, here's why I mentioned this. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Actually, I'm not even going to save it. Because if we look at the outline template, okay, this is the document you have to complete. I have several cautions I want to make. And I hope that you're, either those of you who are here live or those of you who are watching, please pay careful attention to what I'm going to say here. Because you just completed a brainstorming worksheet, right? You handed it in Sunday. This is not that. And I say this because every month there are, I'd say maybe 5 students at least, who treat this like the week 1 worksheet. They see a bunch of prompts and think, oh, I just got to answer these. And so they answer these things in isolation, right? It continues throughout the entire document. And that's not what this is. Each Roman numeral here, so 1, 2, 3, the same 5 paragraphs that I just went over in the what I did over summer vacation. Okay, same exact thing. It's just that here it's broken down. So please understand, Roman numeral 1 is you setting up your introduction paragraph. By the way, maybe I should explain that that's what an outline is. An outline is a blueprint. It's the basic structure of what your essay is going to do, paragraph by paragraph. Okay, it's a 5-paragraph plan. So Roman numeral 1 is your introduction paragraph. And so it asks for a 1-sentence hook, enticing your audience to read more. In other words, give me a 1-sentence preview of how you think your essay will begin. Maybe it changes, but I want you thinking about how your essay might kick things off. So, yeah, Cassandra, if you have a question, please go ahead and type it in the chat box, because I have an issue with audio. Remember, I think I explained last week that my earbud connector broke off in the in the laptop. So sadly, I can't unmute students and hear them. Okay, so 1-sentence preview of how you think your essay is going to begin. Next, a concise description of the advertisement, just 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, so this is not what you did in the brainstorming worksheet. Remember to ask for a detailed description of the ad as if you're explaining it to someone who's never seen it before. This is not that. Cassandra asks, do you want us to use Roman numerals? Cassandra, it's all provided for you. You're going to fill out this document. Okay, I created Roman numerals just to give you the gist of what an outline is, but you're filling out this template, and the template already has the Roman numerals for you. Okay, so you don't have to create any of the Roman numerals. The outline's already created for you. You just have to fill it out. But what I'm saying is I want people to fill it out correctly. So this entire section is the introduction paragraph. So a one-sentence preview of how your paper will begin. A short description of the ad, just 2 or 3 sentences. Why do I ask for this? Because it's pretty common in like an opening paragraph to give your readers background information. And finally, your thesis. Okay, so let's look at the Jeep. So here's a completed outline that I filled out based on the Jeep ad. Here's my one-sentence preview of how I think my essay would begin. Jeep, the well-known brand, practically markets itself with its reputation for ruggedness, independence, and adventure. Yeah, I think that works well as an opening line. Cassandra says, so we basically just respond. You're filling out the outline template, but you have to fill it out carefully. As I said, Cassandra, sometimes people just look at it as like a Q&A, or they look at it as another brainstorming worksheet. So they answer these things completely in isolation without realizing the bigger picture. The bigger picture is we are planning our 5 paragraphs. Okay. So here's my one-sentence preview of how my Jeep essay would begin. Here's my concise description of the ad. Okay. Jeep, see whatever you want to see, is a print poster. It contains a reversible image in the center, set against a beige mesh background. The reversible image is a vintage hand-drawn animal sketch, which looked at one way as a giraffe head, looked at another way as a penguin. The word Jeep, along with the ad's tagline, see whatever you want to see, appears above and below the central image. Right side up on top and upside down just below. Okay, so I think I have 4 sentences here. But the important thing is you keep it short. Maybe I should open up, hold on, I know sometimes this drives students nuts, and I apologize. But here's my completed essay. Okay, this is, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself because you don't actually write the essay draft until next week. But here's what the finished introduction looks like. So I've got the same opening line. I have the short description. And here's my thesis. Okay, so this is what the blank outline is asking for. Opening line, short description of the ad, and your thesis. Yes, your introduction will go beyond that opening line. But here's what a fuller introduction paragraph looks like. Mason says, will we have a template for the essay draft next week? No, there will be no template for the essay. You have to actually write the essay from scratch, but you will have this full version of the Jeep essay and a full version of the past students' Diet Coke paper. So you will have 2 completed essays to look at and study. Okay. So where was I? Okay, the Jeep essay. And yeah, the next thesis asks for your thesis. There's my thesis, right? And there are my 3 things: color, imagery, tagline. Okay. So is everybody with me so far? Like, does this make sense? What we're aiming for? A 5-paragraph essay, and this outline is basically covering those 5 paragraphs, but it's asking you to go into detail about what's going to be included in each of those paragraphs. Okay. And I'm sorry if I'm really beating this over the head, but I'm telling you, every month there are 5 to 7 students who treat this as a worksheet. And no. Okay, so after Roman numeral 2 becomes after Roman numeral 1, your introduction is Roman numeral 2, which is your first body paragraph. Maybe I shouldn't have eliminated that summer vacation thing. I kind of want to go back to it now. But anyway, your thesis lists 3 things, right? And then those 3 things get discussed 1 paragraph at a time. If we go back to the completed essay, right? So here's my thesis. The thesis, it doesn't have to end the introduction, but I'm going to encourage you to do that. simply because it acts as a natural bridge to the rest of the essay. Through the use of simple color, playful imagery, and a double meaning tagline that reinforces theme, the Jeep ad appeals to the inner adventure inside everyone. Okay, so there's my thesis. So, first thesis point, the ad's use of color. That becomes the sole topic of my next paragraph, okay, the first body paragraph. And it begins with a clear topic sentence. A topic sentence is like the thesis for that single paragraph. It lets people know, oh, this paragraph is going to be about color, because the sentence says the ad is an exercise in simplicity, especially in its use of color. And yes, the rest of the paragraph is all about color. First, I describe it, because your audience is the general reader. That's an important thing too. Your audience is the general reader. So it's not someone in this class. It's not someone who knows that we're working on an ad analysis assignment. It is for the perfect stranger. Like, someone should be able to, let's say you accidentally leave your paper behind somewhere, on a cafeteria table or in a library. A perfect stranger should be able to pick up your essay, read it from start to finish, and not stumble. So yeah, I explain how color works in the ad before I get into explaining it. Okay, and then I include some research, some quotation marks. Cassandra says, what does body paragraph mean again? Okay, I'm going to do this real quick. I should have kept that. I knew I should have kept it open. But remember, okay, so introduction. Body paragraph. Number one. Body. Body. I hate this new. I have like the newest MacBook. You'll probably get your MacBook sometime later in the month if you're an online student. They usually come in month 4. So look forward to that. But it has such a thin keyboard. Like, so thin that I keep making mistakes. So, okay, these are the 5 paragraphs that we're aiming for. So, Cassandra, it's super important that you remember this. So, Roman numeral 1 here matches Roman numeral 1 in the blank template. Okay, this guy here. It's just getting into more detail about what you're going to put in your introduction paragraph. If you're literally saying, what does body paragraph mean? This is where you get into analysis. Okay, so let's look at the completed Jeep essay, wherever it is. It's here somewhere. I have so many things open. Okay, so okay, so this entire paragraph is a general paragraph. I'm not diving into any analysis. I'm not talking about the Jeep ad's use of color or its use of imagery. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. It is all general. That's why we call it an introduction. It's introducing what you're going to discuss. So here, I basically riff on the idea of Jeep. Okay, that Jeep is well known. That's famous for being rugged, independent, and adventurous. I found a really cool quote about how Jeep is one of the most copied brands, or it is the most copied brand of American vehicles. That proves that it's very, very famous. And then, yeah, I have a few creative sentences that describe what one thinks of when they think of Jeep. Okay, so person behind the wheel, downshifting around a snaking mountain turn, kicking up dust in the Australian outback, zooming past zebras in the Serengeti, right? So yeah, I like those lines. I describe the ad, just a basic description so that the average person knows what the ad is about. And then there's my thesis. But notice, Cassandra, all of this is general, okay? That's why we call it the introduction. Your body paragraphs, and there are going to be 3 of them, this is where you get into analysis. Okay, Cassie, the body paragraphs, the 3 body paragraphs, this is where you get into analysis. This is where you go into detail about those 3 things, right? And that's what I do here in this essay. So here's my paragraph on color. Next paragraph, here's my paragraph on imagery, because that's my second thesis point, right? Color, imagery, tagline. Third paragraph, this is where I discuss the ad's tagline, because that's my third thesis point. And then the conclusion is sort of the mirror of the introduction. It is also a general paragraph, but it closes things down. But this is also not the place to analyze, not the place to introduce information. You're just closing down the essay. Okay? And yeah, Cassie, if you need like extra help, feel free to reach out to me, because I do think I need to have every student who is crystal clear on these things. 5 paragraphs, introduction, conclusion, 3 body paragraphs in between. Okay, so let's continue. So after the introduction section, you now have Roman numeral 2, which is where you discuss your first thesis point. Okay, that's why it says bodies, paragraphs. It asks for a topic sentence. Your body paragraphs topic sentence, which identifies the first specific rhetorical strategy in your thesis. That's just fancy speak for what is your first thesis point. Okay, my first thesis point is color. Actually, let me get rid of this because I have 10 million things open. Right? So here's my thesis. So the first body paragraph section, I discuss my first thesis point. And here's my topic sentence. Topic sentence, again, is like the thesis for that paragraph. So then it asks for one main point you plan to make in support. Again, the language is a little bit fancy. Sentence describing in detail from the ad that is part of the rhetorical strategy. In other words, okay, this section is about your first thesis point. Here it's the ad's use of color. So what's one main point you plan to make about the ad's use of color? What is a second point you plan to make about the ad's use of color? Then it asks for you to find a relevant quotation. I found 2. And to cite it in APA. We'll get into APA a little bit later. And then, a few sentences explain why the research is relevant. This won't actually appear in your essay. It's more for you and me, just so you understand why your research is on topic. And then you repeat. Okay, so next is Roman numeral 3, which is your second body paragraph. This is where you will discuss your second thesis point. In my case, it's the Jeep's use of imagery, right? That animal imagery. So here's my topic sentence that makes it clear that this paragraph is going to be about imagery. One main point I plan to make about the ad's use of imagery. A second main point I plan to make about the ad's use of imagery. Relevant quotation that I was able to find. Cited in APA format. A sentence or 2 about why that research is relevant, and then repeat. Roman numeral 4 is your third body paragraph. This is where you discuss your third thesis point, which for the Jeep ad is the use of its tagline. Okay, so one main point I make, a second main point I make, relevant research that I was able to find. Okay, explanation of why that research is relevant. And finally, the final body paragraph, Roman numeral 5, your conclusion. It asks you to reword your thesis statement, because that's common as well. You're going to find a different way to remind people of what you've covered. So that's what I've done here. The Jeep ad is deceptively simple, and its basic elements, color, imagery, wording, produce maximum results. Okay, this is just another way of wording my thesis. And then a few sentences that you anticipate closing down the essay. Okay. Cassie says thesis is like a theory, right? It can't, not for this class, Cassie. For this class, a thesis is a sentence. Okay. And Cassie, it does sound like maybe you should reach out to me because, I need to make sure that everybody has these concepts down. We talked about thesis last week. The worksheet that you completed had 2 examples from that lecture to remind you. I don't mean to. I'm happy to work with you. It's just that I'm worried that other people might, they might be saying, "Come on, move on." I get it, but we can definitely work extra. Okay, everybody else, are we following along? Like what we need to do for this outline? Because really, I know I sound like a broken record, but it is okay. Good. I'll move forward then. Okay, I don't want to belabor things, but honestly, I have so many students who fill this out incorrectly. They treat it as just another worksheet to be filled out randomly, and then they're disappointed when they see their grade. Okay. Oh gosh, where do I want to go next? Okay, so you have this blank version of the templates you need to fill out. And really, if you can just keep in mind that each of these Roman numerals represents a separate paragraph, you'll be fine. Okay. Next, we do have to talk about research. Actually, you know what? Let me go to the presentation real quickly, because there probably are a couple things I want to mention here. Welcome to week 2. Okay, so I'm going to blow through some of this stuff. Like here's a picture of what we looked at last week. that this is the writing process, and each arm in this visual represents a different week in the class. So right now we're here in research and also organizing, because that's what an outline is, organizing. Oh, this is super important. I've already mentioned, okay? Who is the intended audience? It's a general reader. But here's why it's so important to keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to open up a blank document real quickly. Here's also what I see a lot of, both in the outline and even in the essay draft that you'll write next week. I'll sometimes see like an essay literally begin like this. Like this is the opening line of the essay. In this ad, the man is nervous on his first day of work. And then I have to be the mean instructor and say, what ad? What man? By the way, anybody want to show off? And can you recognize what ad this person is referring to? Remember, you had about 7 ads to choose from. Yeah, good. Nathan got it. McDonald's. But does it make sense to you? Like, imagine this is the very, very first sentence you read in an essay. Can you understand why I'm telling this person that this would make absolutely no sense to the general reader? Yeah, it's bland and uninteresting, Nathan, but it's more than that. To the perfect stranger, right? So you just grab someone off the street. This would make no sense. Yes. And by the way, a student might say, but the title of my essay is McDonald's First Day Analysis. It doesn't matter. Okay. Good writing dictates that your language is clear. Okay. You shouldn't have to like link the title. So what would a more precise sentence that does take the general reader into account look like? It would look like this. In the McDonald's ad, first day, Andy, an anxious millennial, is on his first day of work. I don't like the repetition of first day here and first day here, but I would work on that later. Can you see there's a huge difference? Like this sentence is very clear. Like if I'm just a perfect stranger who stumbles upon someone's essay that's been left behind, yeah, I would read this opening line and it would make complete sense. In the McDonald's ad, first day, Andy, an anxious millennial, is on his first day of work. This would have me feeling lost. In this ad, what ad? The man, what man? So keep that in mind. Readers need their hands held. They don't need their hands held with everything. They don't need to be explained that McDonald's is a fast food restaurant. But essential info, yes, that needs to be explained because going back to my presentation, your audience is the general reader. Okay. And it has to be understandable and accessible to that reader. What is an essay? An essay can be just about anything, actually. A video can be an essay. But for this class, it's a short piece of nonfiction writing on a particular subject. It is short. We are talking about, we actually have word counts. So the essay, I think, the essay draft should be between 700 and 1,400 words. But yeah, roughly we're talking about a 3-page essay. I think my Jeep essay peters out just shy of three pages. Okay, and I think my Jeep essay is pretty in-depth and carefully written. So yeah, we're talking about 2.5, 3.5 pages. It's rare that I see an ad analysis essay that goes beyond 4 pages. But yeah, 2.5, 3 pages, 3.5 pages. That to me is short. Nathan says, yes, but would you see that sentence as a little typical? Would you want something a little bit more captivating? I mean, yes, Nathan, it's both things, right? It's so general that it makes no sense to the general reader because the general reader, here's the thing I'm trying to get at. Yes, it's also bland and uninteresting. Absolutely. It is not a terrific opening line, but it's also confusing because here's the problem I'm trying to get at. I do see sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, the difference is I can catch it almost immediately, but we sometimes think that the ideas in our head, because they're automatically clear to us, that they must be automatically clear to others. So in this ad, of course, I already know what ad I'm talking about. It's a McDonald's ad. The teacher should know too because he's familiar with the ads. It's this sense that I don't need to explain things. And I'm not saying the person is being intentionally vague, or I'm certainly not saying that the writer is lazy. I'm saying it happens to all of us, okay? Sometimes we think really that the ideas in our head are already clear to other people, but they're not. A good trick is to always read your work from the perspective of someone who is not you. If you can do that and do it honestly, you can spot so many things in your own writing. Because it's not just an opening line that this happens. Sometimes I see it in the middle of the paper, just these sentences that appear that are not completely on the page. And it's because the student is assuming that the reader already knows what he's talking about. Okay. And yeah, actually, I mean, so few students take my advice literally, but I mean literally. Read your work as if you are not you. Put yourself in the shoes of some Joe Schmo or plain Jane, and you will catch so many things. Okay, so let me cruise. By the way, I'm going to cruise through this because we've already covered this. Okay, so basic essay structure. This might help you, Cassie, because this gives a little bit more information or reinforces. So basic essay structure, there's going to be an opening, an introduction. There's going to be your middle paragraphs. This is the support. This is where your ideas appear. Okay, we don't start analyzing the ad in the first paragraph. The first paragraph is solely general. That's why it's called the introduction. You're introducing your analysis. The middle paragraphs is where your support occurs. And then, of course, some sort of conclusion, or ending. Cassie says, find an author basically to model ourselves after. I was talking literally about reading your work from the perspective of someone who's not you. But yes, I actually think in terms of writing in general, I do think there's a lot of value in finding writers that you admire. I learned to write not by studying grammar books. I learned to write from reading. I've never met a writer who isn't a reader. You can learn a tremendous amount from finding a novelist that you admire, or a person who writes about sports or video games, whose style you really appreciate. Yeah, you learn a lot. The more you read, the more the rules of writing just sort of soak into you, like through a sort of osmosis. And that's how I learned to write. You have to be careful because this isn't a creative writing class, so this is a more formal assignment. Anyway, here's a breakdown of those basic categories. So the introduction paragraph, it sets the stage for the rest of your essay. Absolutely. It typically ends with your thesis statement. And your thesis statement should have 3 points, right? So for the Jeep essay, it's the ad's use of color, its use of imagery, its tagline. The Diet Coke essay, its 3 points were music. Remember that funky Waka Waka music? It's camera work, the way it pans that long, tall glass of Coke. And it's language, right? The play on tall, dark, and handsome. So music, camera work, language, those are her 3 points. So for your ad, you also have to have 3 points, and they're listed in your thesis. And then those get discussed one at a time in the body of your paper. And yes, this is where you develop your ideas. This is where you include your thoughts and you actually do your analysis. This is the most important. One idea per paragraph. And then the conclusion, where you echo your main ideas and find a kind of natural way to close down the essay. By the way, it's not just essays. I don't know how many of you have worked in other settings, but like even in a workplace, like a basic memo follows this structure. Yeah, it might not have a full introduction paragraph. It might be a single sentence. It's kind of like a thesis. Dear employees, we are writing to inform you of changes to the 401k plan. And then it presents those changes. And maybe they're not written in full paragraphs, but they definitely are presented one idea at a time. Sometimes it's bullet points. And then there's some sort of conclusion. Thank you for reading this. If you have any questions, please contact HR. Like, you'd be amazed how many formal or semi-formal pieces of writing follow this basic structure. Some sort of introduction, the meat of what you have to say in the body, presented one paragraph at a time, and then some sort of ending or conclusion. So that's why I really stress this stuff. Because it's not that you have to always write a 5-paragraph essay, but if you can remember these basics, ending, closing, paragraphs in between where you discuss your ideas one point at a time, you can tackle any piece of writing. Okay, so thesis statements we talked about last week, so I'm going to fly by those. Uh, Actually, though, for Cassie's benefit, I'm going to real quickly. Remember, I talked about this last week that the basic thesis template essentially says something like in the blank ad, or actually, I think it was the blank ad uses blank, blank, and blank in order to blank. Lots of blanks, but the Call of Duty ad uses music. Now I'll leave the next two blanks open because I don't want to give people ideas. The Altoids ad uses color, something else, something else. The Jeep ad uses color, imagery, tagline in order to, okay? So this is where you lay out, because these 3 points are going to become the bulk of your essay. Okay, I got to move along because we got to talk about research. Actually, let's jump there. So you need 3 sources for your outline. You might have noticed while I was going over it. Actually, let me show the completed version. Let me close the Jeep essay. I might need it. Let me keep it open. Okay, so here's the completed version of the outline. You might have seen that in each of your body paragraphs, yeah, it asks for your topic sentence, one main point you plan to make, another main point you plan to make. But then it says, sentence incorporating research quote. In other words, find me a quotation. Yeah, you got to do research, okay? And here's the thing. If you do this outline well, if you have your topic sentences in place, you are completing the outline correctly, you find useful research, then you are in awesome shape for next week. Because just as I'm going to comment on your worksheet so you can have the best information possible to complete this outline, you'll get feedback on your outline so you can complete the next step, which is writing the paper. And the stronger shape that the outline is in, you'll be putting yourself in fantastic shape for the essay because you already have the skeleton. You already have the basic structure. You just have to flesh things out. Okay. So let's talk about research. You need 3 sources. One source should come from the Full Sail Library database. So let's go there. Here's Full Sail Connect. I assume all of you know how to get here, Full Sail Connect. If you scroll down on your left, you'll see Library. And if you scroll down and click on Research Databases, you'll see a whole bunch of databases. Probably for your purposes, you're going to use EBSCOhost. EBSCOhost is actually a super huge database that includes all these individual databases like Academic Search Complete, Business Source Complete. But you can actually search all those at once by just clicking on EBSCOhost. Or there is what was formerly known as LexisNexis. It is now called Nexus Uni. Nexus Uni tends to search more everyday things like newspapers, popular magazines, whereas EBSCOhost will search some of that, but it tends to search more journals and academic publications. So let's begin with EBSCOhost. Okay. You can I recommend this guy here, select it all, so you can search all these databases at once. Click continue. Now, here's the thing. I already know what to type in to trigger a very specific article. It will not be this easy for you, okay? Where's my Jeep essay? Keep going back and here it is. Look at my final essay. Here's the references page. I have 6 references. And actually, I didn't use that video that I mentioned at the beginning of this lecture, Pathos, Ethos, Logos, and Advertising, where that video can be one of your 3 sources. No, I just didn't feel like using it and found 6 other sources of my own. No, you don't need 6. You just need 3. But yeah, it took me hours to find these sources. Why? Because I knew I wanted to find something useful and interesting about color theory, something about earth tones and its connection to nature, because the Jeep is using earth tones, right? Because Jeep is stereotypically connected to the outdoors. And yeah, not just any source will do. I have to find something that actually is a useful piece of information, a useful quotation. Cassie says, do we need to use both EBSCOhost and Nexus? No, you don't have to use both. I'm saying that you could use both to search for quality sources. And remember, your research is mostly going to work to support your thesis points. So once you have your 3 thesis points, so for me, for the GPAD, it's color, imagery, tagline. You're mostly going to look for research that supports those things. So yeah, I did research into color theory. I found a nifty quotation that's specifically about the imagery in the Jeep ad. That comes from this article here in Branding Magazine. But here's my point. I can't really show you how difficult and how much time it takes to find quality sources, because you're trying to find a useful quotation, or at the very least useful information that you can paraphrase, that helps support your ideas. And that takes time. So I'm going to type in Call of Duty and the name of the song that's used in that ad, which is Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. And like I said, it's not going to be this quick for you. So it's not going to be something you do in 10 or 15 minutes. It quite literally might take you hours to find 3 good sources that provide information that you can use that helps support your ideas. So in this case, though, I'm trying to find this specific article called Gimme Sales in Billboard Magazine. I'll click on the HTML. You'll either get an HTML or a PDF. And here's the article. And you can see it's short. And at first glance, I've already read this before, so I can tell you that at first glance, it doesn't seem to really provide any answer to why the Call of Duty ad uses the song Gimme Shelter. Remember I said in week 1, we're ultimately trying to answer the question why. Why this color? Why this camera work? Or in case of the Call of Duty ad, why does it use this song, Gimme Shelter? Could have used any song, right? Some people say, well, it's upbeat, it's energetic, it gets you in the mood. It's a classic song, it's a classic rock song that's well known. I agree with all that. All that is true. But lots of songs could have done that. Why did they choose Gimme Shelter? If any of you are writing about the Call of Duty ad, I'll give you a hint that, yeah, it's more meaningful than just the song being energetic, the song putting you in the right mood. That's part of it. But why that song? Okay, Cassie, that's a great point. Actually, I'll read that out loud. So if people are watching this, you're already getting some help. Cassie says, plus it's a war game, and they're always seeking shelter. Okay, so yeah, it's not just any upbeat song. It's a song specifically about war, and if you listen to the lyrics, it seems to match. I'll give you another hint. If you think about the game itself, when it is set, that's my hint. Okay. But yeah, Cassie, that's a great point. Okay. So yeah, you do. I think you are getting the hang of this, Cassie. Anyway, this article doesn't seem to provide an answer, but I could make the argument that this information here, and I'm going to revisit this next week because next week is going to be completely devoted to APA. But this is all information about how the Vice President of Music Affairs, Tim Riley, flew to New York to speak to the rights holders of the song to get permission. Even showed the band members, so the Rolling Stones themselves, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards. It allowed the band to see an early edit of the commercial, so it could get their approval as well. So it's not explaining why Gimme Shelter is meaningful, but I would argue this could be a secondary piece of research because it is sort of hinting at they wanted this song, right? It's not just any song. They want this song so badly that, yeah, they flew out to New York to get permission. So it's not fully answering the question, but it is tangential, right? It is proof that they want this song, not just any song. So this might possibly work. I wouldn't stop here, though. I would try to find information that literally explains or helps me understand why Gimme Shelter is appropriate for this ad. But at least there is some interesting information here. Okay. So one source should come from the Full Sail Library database. Your other 2 sources, well, again, one has been provided for you. So if I go back to the assignment itself, right? Where is it? Here, Pathos, Ethos, Logos, and Advertising. It's a video on YouTube. You are free to use this as one of your 3 sources. Please, please, please do something more interesting with it than just tell me that pathos is the appeal to emotion. Yeah, I know that already. You know that already. You didn't need a video to tell you that. Basic definitions of words isn't really research. Try to find something in the video that's more interesting than that. Cassie says, I wonder if gaming companies have to ask permission for the artist to use the song due to copyright laws. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Not only in an ad, but in the game itself. That's the way that artists make money. Okay, so your money gets, or excuse me, your song gets used in FIFA 2016, the soccer game, uh, or, you know, Madden football, or any video game. Yeah, you get paid. Actually, that's an important payday for an artist if your song gets used in an ad or the game itself. Okay, I need to talk about APA. So the outline template, right? So here's the completed outline. It asks for quotations, and it asks that those quotations include an APA citation. You also, at the end of your outline, have to create a references page. Here's the thing. Here's my promise to you, okay? For the outline, I want you to do the best job you can with APA. Give it the old, pardon the pun, the good old college try. If you can do that, if I can see that, okay, this person's really trying hard to follow APA, I won't take off many points, maybe not any points at all, if I can clearly see that you're trying your best with APA. The reason is because there are only about 5 minutes, and I'll probably go a little bit over, so I apologize for that, in this lecture. That's not enough time for me to go over APA. In fact, next week's lecture, and I know this isn't going to sound thrilling because it's hardly the sexiest topic, but next week is going to be completely devoted to APA. I will open up a blank Microsoft Word document and basically show you step by step how to make your essay, where it is, look like this. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to create the header, the cover page, how to set up paragraphs and spacing. Yes, show how to create citations, in-text citations, and show you how to create the references page, all in real time. Okay, so next week it's going to cover all of that. Because I don't have time to go into that in depth, I'm going to point you to a couple places and encourage you to just imitate the examples, which is, by the way, what APA is mostly about, or MLA. Find the examples and basically do the same thing. So I'm going to type this into your chat box. People who are watching this at home, you can just see that it says projectapa.info. So I'm going to type that into the chat box. Encourage you to click on that link I just sent you and bookmark it, because this is a website created by a fellow Full Sail English teacher. And the cool thing about this is it doesn't get too much into the weeds, so it's going to mostly include information that's important for you. So I recommend, for example, going to in-text citations and start by clicking on just the first guy here, the first tab, how to format a quotation. And there are 2 ways to cite a quotation in text, just to imitate one of the 2. Okay, so either this guy here or this guy here. This is what I'm going to get into next week. It's a little bit confusing because you always have 2 ways to do it. You can name your author in your actual sentence, like according to Newman, or sometimes you could put the full name, according to James Newman, or according to James Newman, a writer for Time Magazine. Okay, but you mention the author's name in your actual sentence. You immediately have to put the date in parentheses. Then you deliver your quotation, and at the end, you'll put a page or a paragraph number. Or you can just find your own natural way to lead into the quotation and put everything at the end. Name, year, page or paragraph number. Okay, so you have projectapa.info. And if you have any exceptions, like there are multiple authors, or unknown authors, or no date in your quotation, you can see how that's handled. Okay, same thing for the references page. Depending on what kind of reference you have, let's say it's something from a newspaper or magazine. See, article from an online newspaper. A lot of you will be doing something like this, article from a database. Okay, and just imitate. So do the same thing you see here. The other place I would point you to are the examples. So you have the Jeep. Here, I'm going to close the full essay. So you have the Jeep outline, the finished outline. Go to the references page and just copy. Okay, do the same thing. You can clearly see that you need an author's last name, first initial, a date in parentheses, the name of the article, the title or name of the publication, and then a retrieve from line. Okay, and then if it's from the internet in general, because you can go online and Google as well. Okay, it should be a quality site, a trustworthy site. But if it comes from online, just give me the URL, the www. And if it comes from the online database, we'll get into it next week. You can either include the permalink, or you can just put like retrieve from academic search complete. Actually, don't worry too much about that, okay? We'll get into that next week. Follow as well as you can this stuff. Do people feel comfortable that they can go to either projectapa.info or the sample outline and imitate? Okay, Nathan says yes. And same thing for quotations. Like, for example, in the completed outline for the Jeep, here's a quotation where I find my own natural way to lead into the quotation. The ad encourages viewer interaction, comma, for, quote, when rotated, each of the animals becomes another species, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the quote, here's my citation. Radich, 2013, paragraph 3. And again, Project APA discusses what you can do if there is no author's name or if there is no year. Same thing for references. There is no author. Basically, you just move the article title in front and keep on going with the rest of the information. So that's my promise to you. My promise is if you are following as best you can APA, I'm not going to make a big deal if small things are incorrect. Where I will take off points is if you're just making things up. Okay, you're inventing your own format for citations. You're inventing your own format for references. You're just making it up. Okay. By the way, other instructors don't do this. I'm not fishing for compliments. Excuse me. But other instructors kind of just tell you, here's Project APA, get it right. And if you don't get it right, you lose massive points on the outline. I don't think that's fair. I don't think APA is confusing. Not only that, but most students are not familiar with APA. So I don't think it makes much sense to take off major points if APA has not been introduced with depth. And next week, like I said, it may not be the sexiest topic, but we will go through APA in detail. It may not be thrilling, but I promise you it will be incredibly useful. Okay, next week you should be able to handle APA perfectly because we're going to go over it step by step. So for this assignment, I really want you to spend more time making sure the outline is in solid shape. Okay, and then do the best you can with APA. That's my promise to you. Okay, so that's basically what I wanted to cover. So this is the time for questions, comments, obviously about this week's assignment, but about anything at all. If you are comfortable with what we've gone over, I'm not going to force you to stay. I thank you for showing up, and we'll do this again next week at the same time. I'm going to hang out for a little bit, though, because people may have questions. And I'll filibuster a bit while I wait for questions. Yeah, again, I apologize if I belabored some points too much at the beginning, but really, you'd be amazed. Every month, it's like 5 to 7 students who just fill out the outline template as if it's a random worksheet, as if those are random prompts. And it is so important that people understand the 5-paragraph format and understand that each of those Roman numerals in the outline represents a different paragraph. Nathan says he appreciates the step-by-step. Yeah, lots of students do, Nathan. I think there are a few that have gotten this in high school. Or maybe high school is fairly recent, so they remember things like Thesis and 5-paragraph format, but most students don't. And like I said, the most important takeaway is not that all writing is 5 paragraphs, because it isn't. It's that formal or semi-formal writing, whether it's a inter-office memo or whether it's an essay, so much of it really does follow this basic structure. Some sort of introduction, some sort of conclusion or closing, and in between, is where the bulk of the information appears. One idea at a time. Keep your eyes open for that, by the way. Next time you read an article online or an essay written by a professional, okay, so not like someone who's, I don't know, commenting on in a Reddit thread, but an actual polished piece of writing. CNN article or a feature story on a sports figure that you admire. Yeah, I think you'll be able to identify this is the introduction. If it's a longer piece, an introduction might be several paragraphs. But you should be able to spot introduction, conclusion, body paragraphs in between, and how those body paragraphs focus on one idea at a time. Yeah, Nathan, the basic structure is used a lot. I think the 5 paragraph structure is not used that often. It's pretty rare that you find perfectly structured 5 paragraph essays, but I think your point was more about how that basic structure, like the organizing principles behind it, are used. And that's true. Like, it's pretty rare that you're going to find a published professional essay or article in a newspaper or magazine that dives right into the middle of things. No, there's always some sort of beginning, some sort of ending, and in between is where you find the meat. And same thing here. Okay, I think I closed it, but yeah, I mean, that's the basic structure of the Jeep paper, the Jeep essay. You'll see this essay next week. And some students learn a lot once they see like finished examples of essays because they get to see it. Yeah, it sometimes takes students like once they see and read and hear like an actual essay, that's when things start to click. Like, okay, now I get it. Now I kind of get a sense of what this ad analysis thing is all about. But yeah, introduction. And my introduction is pretty long. Like, it's somewhat ambitious. And then 3 body paragraphs. Color. Imagery. I did kind of forget to cover in this session. I mean, I briefly mentioned it, that I think a lot of you will do something similar in that you'll have a topic sentence, okay, that makes it clear that this paragraph is about the ad's use of imagery. And then describe it. Because again, the general reader doesn't know the ad like you do. So yeah, I explain what the imagery is in the ad and how it works. Then I start to explain, okay, that the imagery is powerful and this strategy would not work if it were for a different car company. That's true. The reversible animal imagery would not make any sense if it were used in a Ford or a Lexus ad. Then I find a useful quotation. And then, yeah, more analysis and kind of wrap up. Perception is important because the ad wants to create a positive perception of the Jeep product. The animal imagery is effective because it connects strongly to Jeep's overall brand. Only such a versatile automobile as Jeep, the ad seems to suggest, could take one on a journey into the heart of the African plain or to the rocky tip of Tierra del Fuego to see giraffes and penguins up close. Yeah, by the way, I had a lot of fun writing this. Like I said, I thought I was too confident. I thought, yeah, I know what I want to say. Because I really did. I looked at that Jeep ad and felt like I knew what I wanted to say. But the writing of it took much longer than I ever thought. That's a reminder, too. You get your feedback hopefully within 72 hours. That leaves you 4 days to work on the next assignment. And those 4 days go fast, especially if you're juggling a job, a partner or spouse, children. And yeah, finding the time to really commit yourself to writing, it takes time. Like, I'm the teacher. I've been writing all my life. And I'm telling you that this 5 paragraph essay that I confidently thought I could just bang out, no, it took me, like I said, 12 hours. Now, that's for everything, the writing, the researching, the formatting. But yeah, if it takes the teacher 12 hours, it's probably going to take you guys at least that same time. So yeah, it's helpful too because it reminds me that, like I said earlier, writing is never easy. Maybe it becomes easier, but it's never easy. Okay, I think I'm going to stop the recording. I'll hang out, but it looks like the questions have slowed down. So for the people watching, if they haven't clicked off already, thank you so much for watching. I'm ending the recording now.